Come join Melissa and her guests on the Chats from the Blog Cabin podcast. From North Carolina, this podcast will have you feeling like you've known these folks for years. Listen in as they chat about life, culture, current events, and more, all with a special Southern flair. Curl up with your favorite beverage and get ready to be entertained. Tune in now for a unique experience that's fun and insightful.
Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Chats in the Blog Cabin, the show where I virtually invite people into the blog cabin to chat about life. And today we're chatting about some of my favorite things, and that is flowers and flower arranging and how we can actually use that as part of self-care, which I absolutely love. Now, forgive me if I get it wrong again, but it's Talia, right?
Talia, yes, Talia.
Yes. Okay, I wrote it down, but I wanted to make sure. Is with me, and she is the owner of Postal Petals. And so she actually created this company and started it from a way of self-care, mental health benefits, and calmness. So welcome to the show, first of all, and tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into talking about flowers.
Yeah, so my name's Talia Boone. Like you said, I'm the founder and CEO of Postal Petals. I am an LA native. I lived on the East Coast for several years and made my way back to LA. I'm a Cali girl at heart. I always say that I'm like, my vibe is flip-flops and t-shirts all the time. And so, my background is in public relations, marketing, PR, brand strategy. I started my career in the sports industry. I worked for NFL teams, and then very NFL adjacent with, players, leagues, associations, that kind of thing. And so my professional background is, again, marketing, PR, brand strategy, partnerships in both sports, entertainment, and then do a lot of work in the social impact realm. So that's a little bit about me. And I think I mentioned that I'm still based here in Southern California.
And I love Southern California because my daughter actually lives in Pasadena. So I'm based in North Carolina, but Pasadena is so beautiful. It's just California. I fell in love with it when I went out to visit.
Yeah, California, it's like where my heart is for sure. I'm from, like I said, Southern California, but my mom's family is from the Bay Area. My sister and I used to spend our summers up there every single year. So I have family all up and down the coast of the state. So I'm obsessed. And Pasadena isn't too far from us at all. I'm actually driving through Pasadena later this week. Yeah, it's not far. It's a beautiful, especially South Pasadena. It's got a lot of like rich history and beautiful houses and architecture and, really cool shops and restaurants. Like, yeah, it's a really beautiful part of town.
And it's so walkable too, for sure.
Very, very walkable. And that's one of the things that I love about that area, and then the area of LA that I'm in. Because one thing that a lot of people don't know about LA, well, they kind of know, but that it's quite a car culture, meaning that there's just, years ago, and this is that by the hand of the auto lobby, that, they kind of came in and, tore up all of our like streetcars and, kind of dismantled a bit of our public transportation and kind of made us a state that was very reliant on cars. And so because of that, things here in LA are very, very spread out. It's very, very rare that we're ever able to just walk places. And so what I love about what's, kind of been happening in the last several years, last couple of decades, I guess, decade or two, is that they've been really intentional about building communities that are more walkable and starting to kind of build up in spaces where it used to be nothing but neighborhoods. Now you're starting to see more shops and juice bars and restaurants and things to where, we can begin to kind of experience life in the same way that, I experienced it when I lived on the East Coast, or when people are, in New York and they can just about walk everywhere. And so we're getting a lot more communities like that in LA, and I absolutely love it. I'm completely obsessed. I actually didn't have a car for maybe about a year or two before the pandemic, and it was amazing. I just walked everywhere, Ubered, and it was great.
Yeah. Now let's talk about that, the shift, because you said you worked in sports and now you're with flowers, and that's kind of like a shift, a huge mindset shift as well. So how did that come about?
Yeah, so it was a kind of a transition, right? So I started off in sports and then became sports and entertainment, and then that kind of morphed into social impact. And a lot of the work that I do in the social impact space is really focused around all manners of like not criminal, civil and human rights issues. So that would be things like GOTV, Get Out the Vote campaigns, home, homelessness. Anti-recidivism, educational empowerment, economic development, criminal justice reform, like that kind of stuff. And so I mentioned that because that it plays into kind of how I ended up with flowers, right? So years ago, I was introduced to flower arranging by a friend of mine who really just kind of suggested it as a really fun friend activity. And I did it and found it to be just very relaxing in a way that I just did not expect it to be. And with the work that I was doing in the social impact space, that work was very stressful, right? Like I always will say to people, as when we the system is broken, it needs to be fixed. And I'm always just like, once you actually are in that space and you're working in it, you realize the system is not at all broken. It's functioning exactly as it's intended to function. And a lot of the things that we fight against are very intentional. And so it's very stressful. It can be demoralizing, all of these things. And so I found myself whenever in the workspace, I would feel stressed, anxious, upset, anything like that, I would just kind of let that energy be expressed in the flower. So I would go down to the LA flower market. I'd mill around, pick whichever flower spoke to me that day, whatever colors, whatever shapes, whatever textures. And I would just come home. I'd pour a cup of tea or a glass of wine, depending on how bad of a day it was, and put on some good music and just kind of get lost in arranging flowers. And it never failed. It always just settled me. It always balanced me out. It always relaxed me in a way that I just really came to appreciate and kind of cling to. So then fast forward to the very early days of the pandemic here in LA. We went on lockdown about the second week of March, after New York, but before I think a number of other areas went on lockdown. And so initially, like everyone, it was just going to be a quick 2 weeks in the house. And that 2 weeks turned into another 2 weeks and another 2 weeks. And by that point, I was like, wait a minute, this is not as quick of a fix as we were initially kind of led to believe. And I started to really kind of panic around like the uncertainty, which I think all of us were feeling at that time, right? The uncertainty around what does this mean for me, for my family, for my life, for my company, for my health, right? And in that, I just started just getting very, very anxious. Like I said, the walls were closing in. And it was actually my therapist who said to me, Talia, I haven't heard you talk about arranging flowers in a while. You haven't been able to do that in a bit. Why don't you try that and see if that helps you to kind of decompress and kind of, level yourself out? So I thought, oh, that's a great idea. The problem was that the flower market was closed because of the lockdowns. And so that sent me on this kind of journey to find a company. I just was like, oh, I'm sure I could, find a company online that could ship me, flowers to arrange at home. Because at that point, you could get pretty much anything delivered. And I looked, and while there were flower companies that would ship you flowers, they were all still the same kind of ready to use arrangements. And that's not really what I wanted. Like I wanted to have that at the end, but really my goal was to have myself go through the process and kind of decompress through the process of arranging. So I looked and looked and couldn't find anything, and ended up stumbling upon this wholesale flower distributor who shipped really large volumes of flowers to his retail and wholesale clients all around the world. And I called him really just to see if I could convince him to reduce his minimums enough to just ship me like a consumer sized box of flowers that I could arrange at home. And while he right away said no, he was really gracious in his no and very, very generous in his explanation why. And he and I ended up on the phone for about 2.5 hours. And during that time, he really was explaining to me, kind of one, why it's not possible to send these consumer sized boxes. And then also kind of explaining to me what the farms were going through, what the flower farms were going through, how they were, flowers were dying in the field. They had to lay off their workers. There's no, events going on, no weddings. Like people were stockpiling toilet paper at that time. They were not stockpiling flowers. You know what I mean? No one was even thinking about flowers. And so he was explaining to me that there just was not manpower to do what I was looking for, and that farmers themselves are just they're trying to figure out how to survive. And so by the time we got off the call, the idea for Postal Petals had come to me, and I kind of said to him, but at the end of the call, just hey, do you think something like this could work? And I kind of described a version of what Postal Petals is, like a company where, you know, we can just ship people boxes of flowers that they can arrange themselves, and then, have the farm shipped directly to the consumer. And, he sat and he thought about it for a bit. And then he said, if you would have asked me this 4 months ago, I would have said absolutely not. But now, given, kind of this current state of things, the farmers are really desperate to find new ways to bring their products to market. So that something like that actually could work. And that was the week before Mother's Day. 2020, and I immediately got off the phone and went to work building out a wireframe, looking at names, colors, all of these, just building the brand, because again, my background is in brand building, brand strategy, brand partnerships. And so from the first week of May to the last of July, I worked on building up the company, and we launched Postal Petals in beta in July of 2020, and we were in beta for about 6 weeks, and we've been off to the races ever since. And so what we do is we partner with domestic flower farms to ship boxes of fresh cut flowers to our customers all across the country, for them to create their own arrangements as a way to promote both creative exercise as well as therapeutic practice. And then as an extension of that, we also host both virtual and in-person floral design workshops, really to kind of help to support and guide their design experience, still allowing their design experience to be their own, but really as a way to kind of help them feel supported through that process. Because as I mentioned, we are so used to enjoying flowers as a ready to use product that most people are, nervous or apprehensive, or, about being able to feeling comfortable expressing themselves creatively through the art of flower arranging. And so now we're not just direct to consumer. We also have a corporate offering. We do, a lot of work with our corporate partners. We host virtual and in-person workshops for them. We do employee team building, corporate health and wellness programming. We do like large-scale immersive art installations. Anything that we can do where people are able to engage with flowers in a way that they are not traditionally engaging with them. That's the space in which we thrive.
Now, when you first came up with this idea and you started like talking about it with your friends and family, what did they think? Did they think, "Oh no, she's got another idea. What are we gonna do?" Or was it like, "Oh yes, that's something that we totally can do"? And how much of a struggle did you get from that very first time that you
Yeah,
thought of it to when it actually launched it?
yeah. Nobody thought, here she goes again. One, because my friends and family respect me. They respect my
Mhm.
expertise. They respect my mind, and they know that whenever I say I'm going to do something, I do something. I'm not the type. I'm not the type of person that just has a new idea every other day. I'm not flighty, right? I'm very, very, very focused. And so if I decide that I'm going to put my time and attention into something, and just begin to share it with people that this is what I'm doing, they know that that's what I'm doing. So there was no pushback with that at all. It was very, all the feedback was very direct, very supportive, very how can I help, very yes um, and in that way, I really do appreciate it. So I do have a very trusted group of people around me that, I said, hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is how it would work. How do you think something like that would play in the marketplace? I did ask those types of questions, and I got really, really great feedback. Hey, maybe try this, maybe try that. I love this idea. This is how I could see it, growing. This is how I could see, it being able to be used in these spaces. So they were very much yes and, in a way that I truly appreciate. And also too, my beta was all friends and family, and they were immediately receptive from the moment I put it out. I mean, the orders were just like flowing in, and so that within the first week we had so much data around, what adjustments to make, that we only were in beta for about 6 weeks, because there was so much good feedback, because they moved so incredibly quickly. And then we weren't even up 2 months. And then a friend of mine was like, several friends actually said, I really like this. I think that this could be a lot bigger than even you're thinking. When you're ready to take on outside funding, let me know. I'm here for it. And so, yeah, I'm fortunate in that everybody was immediately supportive. But again, I am not the type of person to just haphazardly start things. So when people, when I speak in that way, they thankfully, listen and pay attention. So it was very, very supportive. And I'm fortunate in that way.
Okay, we need to take a brief commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about some of maybe the struggles that you went through, especially I know probably finding the farmers and how that all went about. So we'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Joanna, and I would like to share with you a little bit about Shores of Grace, Shores Philly. It's a ministry located in Philadelphia. The portion of Shores that I volunteer for goes into Kensington, an area greatly impacted by homelessness and addiction. And we go and we take love, food, clothing, snacks, conversation. We believe that it is a way that we can meet people right where they are and show them the love of Jesus. We have seen lives changed in big ways and in small ways, and we have built wonderful relationships with the people in the community. We have big plans, more we'd like to do, and we would appreciate any support, either through prayer or through donation. If you would like to donate, you can go to shoresofgrace.com, and in the menu, click on Donate. And we just ask that you put Philly in your donation comments. Thank you.
And we are back chatting about flowers. Now, before we went to break, I wanted to know about, because you talked about, you had the idea, you already started like with the strategy and the branding and everything. That was your first thing. But then the step is going to find the farmers. How difficult was that to find farmers that would actually work with you?
You know what? In all honesty, it wasn't as difficult as we thought it would be. When we launched in beta, we launched with almost 20 farm partners ready to ship with us. And the reason being was, kind of as I mentioned earlier, that they were really desperate to find new ways to bring their product to market, and we were giving them direct access to the end user. And so they were thrilled. We actually had once we launched and we began, kind of started to get, more well known, farms were reaching out to us, asking, if they could, if they could work with us. And so finding farm partners was actually not nearly, as difficult as I initially thought that it may be. So we were, again, fortunate in that way. I always say that this company was something that the way that it all came about, there's no way that it could just be of my own mind, right? I feel like this was like gifted. This is definitely of a higher power. And it's, for me, I'm very aware of all of this, all of the stops along the way, or the things that happen along the way where the favor was 100% there, where it just made no sense that getting farms was so easy, or that meeting this person was so easy, or that getting, access into this room to get this deal done was so easy, but I just believe that there is just a higher power and just a greater being that is working and kind of helping me move along. And grow this company, because it's something that I feel like I've been assigned more than it's quite a bit bigger than me, is the way that I feel about it. And I believe that to me is reaffirmed every thing happens, where I'm just like, wow, like, okay, great. I don't know how you found me, but let's do it, so it's the farms came very easily, and they continue to come easily. So we're grateful.
Do you think if COVID hadn't hit, that maybe the farmers might not have been as receptive to this idea?
I think if COVID hadn't hit, I would not have even come up with the idea, right? I was not looking to start this company, right? I was very content with my impact agency. We were doing very good work. We were, I was very happy with what I was doing professionally, very fulfilled in that. And it was nothing that I was not looking for this company at all, which is, again, why I say I feel like this is something that I was led to, and that was gifted to me. But yeah, so to answer your question very directly, no, I don't think that the farmers would have been open to it, had it not been for COVID. COVID was this great equalizer in a lot of ways, in a way in which, but prior to COVID, and I guess a little bit still now, the floral industry has a little bit of which a lot of industry has. So I don't want to say like it's a bad thing for the floral industry, but a bit of a gatekeeper type culture. And, some of the bigger players are very much able to kind of dictate, who, some of the farms and suppliers, will work with. And so I don't feel as confident that we would be able to be as far as we are, were it not for COVID. But again, if it weren't for COVID, this company wouldn't even exist, because I would not have, I would have just gone down to the flower market and gotten my flowers and went on with my day. I wouldn't have thought about, how do I solve this problem that I am having? And I decided that if I'm having this problem, that this must be a hole in the market. And if I want it, someone else may want it, and I'm going to fill this need. So it was my background that allowed me to be able to see the hole in the market. One, two, see the opportunity to enter this industry. And three, to have the skill set and the understanding and the expertise to maximize the vision and kind of see that hole and turn it into a wide avenue for myself and the company.
Now, you mentioned the very beginning of the interview that you had that conversation for 2.5 hours with the supplier, or want to see if they could ship you just a consumer box. Have you gone back to that person and talked to him since you've launched your company?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. We've worked with him like 100%. Like, we work with him. We do a lot of business with him because, listen, I'm all about, collaboration and partnership. And, I'm a big proponent of, working collaboratively with people. So yeah, absolutely. We are very much still in communication, still work with them, do a lot of work with them. So yes, absolutely. Yeah. He is very intimately aware of all of the growth and things that are happening with us. That's for sure.
I was just wondering what his impression was. And it's like, wow, that came out of a 2.5 hour conversation that we had. And now look at where this company's at now.
Yeah, he just was, I think for him, he also, because his business was impacted by COVID as well. Right. And so for him, he's like, okay, well, if you could make this happen, this could be a value add for me. I mean, we worked with him in our early years, working through the farm relationships, building out, the recipe. So we worked very closely with him in our early years, kind of building out a lot of, the kind of processes and relationships and mapping that we continue to use today. So yeah, he was very much an early adapter, an early believer, and was very instrumental in helping us, kind of get everything with Postal Petals off the ground, for sure. Yeah, it wasn't just, I talked to him, hang up, and never talked to him again. No. I definitely, we absolutely stayed in contact, for sure.
I love that, because I love the fact that you built that relationship, and out of that conversation, your company was born, and then you're able to go back and say, hey, look, now we can work together to do the boxes that I wanted to do.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And we, we were just barely 3 years old, but we worked with him the whole time. And so, he's been able to also, experience fruit from that, from that relationship. So yeah, it's pretty.
So a customer comes on your website and they look at it. What should they expect when they first come to the website, and how do they go about ordering?
Yeah, so we have 3 box sizes available. Basically a small, medium, and large size box. I called our Beanie box, which is named after my forever dog daughter, Beanie. I lost her the December before the pandemic. Had her for over 16 years. She was the love of my life, my puppy love. Our medium size box is called a midi box, and then our biggie size box is our largest. And each of those come with anywhere from 6 to 12 bundles of flowers. The Beanie has 6, Midi has 9, Biggie has 12. And then what we do is we work with the farms to curate 6 flower recipes. So we'll work with the farms to see what's in season, what's looking good. And then we'll curate those recipes so that we know that, these are the 6 bundles of flowers that are going to come in the beanie box. And then for each of those recipes. So basically what happens is you'll, first kind of decide how many flowers you want, like what kind of size you want. And then once you do that, then you can go in and kind of look at the pictures of the recipe. So you see one recipe may have roses and lilies and eucalyptus and dahlias or something like that, and you may say, oh, I love those, or you may say, I really like wildflowers and I want something with chamomile and something with that's a bit more wispy. And so we have those different options available, and you just kind of pick the recipe that speaks most to you. And the best way to think about it is almost like those meals delivery services where they send you the ingredients and then you prepare the meal. That's us, but for flowers. And so when your box arrives, it's in a cute little Postal Petals box. You open it up, your flowers are in there, but in the top of the box, on the inner flap of the box, it's got instructions for what you do as soon as you unbox them. You give them a little trim, you put them into some fresh water, let them rehydrate, because by the time the flowers will get to you, they will have been off the vine at least 36 hours, right? Because they're cut, packaged, and then shipped. And so you have to give them another cut, put them in water, and let them kind of rehydrate. Sometimes they look a little wilted, a little lame, but that's just because they need water. Then you give them water. Within about an hour or two, they're back perked up. And then there is a QR code on our box that our customers can then scan, which takes them to our website, where they can then go in and get more design tips. But it's meant to be a really supportive experience, but also a very personal experience, right? Like we're starting to see more DIY flower companies pop up, but it feels more like almost like paint by numbers, right? Kind of like this flower here and that flower there. And we are really intentional about staying away from that, right? Because for us, it's not just about the flowers. For us, it's about the experience that you have with them. And creativity should be your own. And when you give someone something to judge their creation against, then what happens is that they begin to judge their creation against the creation of a professional. And that's not really fair, right? And so I always will try to encourage people not to, look to the left or look to the right and see who else is doing what, but instead to really stay focused and centered into their design, what's making them happy about their design, and what would make them happy happier as they continue to grow it.
Yeah, because then that's when your creativity gets kind of sets loose, when you're actually working with the flowers and putting them there. Maybe you may not like the professional design of the flower that some of the professionals done, and you want your little take on it, your little unique twist on it.
Exactly. And it's interesting because I hear people talk more and more now about how, we're so glad when they saw my company come up, because they were that person who, whenever someone would send them flowers, they would deconstruct it. They would take it apart and rearrange it themselves in a way that they thought was better. And I'm like, great. Now you don't even have to go through all of that. You can order a box of flowers from us and make yourself, 2, 3, 4 arrangements, right? Because that's another really great thing, is that with us, you get so many more flowers because you're not having to pay that, professional designer markup. We're just sending you the flowers and you're the designer. So now you have all of these excess stems that you could work with and create your designs. You could, put together, 10 bud vases if you want, and place them all around your house. You could, do one big arrangement and, several small arrangements, right? There's so many things that you can do, but that's the thing, is that the experience is wholly and solely your own.
So can you give us some tips for flower arranging, and like what kind of flowers complement each other?
Yeah, so my biggest tips are always, always, always to keep your flowers in clean water. People always will talk about, flower food, or what could they put in their water to make the flowers last longer. And I always say, more than thinking about food or what you could put in it, think about what you can keep out of it. And that is bacteria. And the way that you keep bacteria out of your water is by making sure that you're changing it every day and keeping it fresh. The other thing is, when you're trimming your flowers, I would suggest trimming them every day, just a tiny little trim, just to make sure that there's a new fresh wound for them to take water in from. The other thing is to make sure that you remove the leaves from below the water line. A lot of people don't realize that leaves can be toxic to flowers. water, it actually suffocates the flowers. And that's how. Do you ever notice when, there'll be leaves in the water and the water gets really icky and smelly, and that's because the leaves have started to poison the water. And so it's important to keep no leaves in the water, keep the water clean, and your flowers will last so much longer than you would ever expect if you were to just, kind of keep that water clean. And then when thinking about what flowers look good together, in all honesty, I love a monochromatic look. It is my absolute favorite. Like, my team is always on me about not making every recipe monochromatic. Like, I love like all whites, or I love all reds. I love a green arrangement. There's so many beautiful green flowers that people don't recognize, right? They're so used to greenery being like foliage, and being kind of like a support to like these beautiful, big, bold colors, that they don't think about the fact that there's actually really beautiful green actual flowers and blooms. And when you work with those like hydrangea and, China mums, even spider mums, like things like that, or Lysianthus, that come in these green hues, and you start to put them together, and all of a sudden you've got something that you would typically see as nothing but foliage, and see it as this beautiful floral piece of art. I'm obsessed. It's like my favorite is to do like all green flowers, and it's just so beautiful. And then when people see it, they're like, wow, I would have never thought to use hydrangea like this. I would have never thought. I didn't realize they had green flowers. They're so beautiful. I'm like, yeah, they're really beautiful. You guys have to, stop only thinking about reds and pinks, and start to think about some of the others. And so, I would say, allow space for you to see all flowers going together if you so choose. Because they're flowers, they're so beautiful. Like, you really can't get it wrong. You can't mess it up.
You keep saying recipe, and I love that, because it's almost like we're in the kitchen, but we are creating something. But I love, why did you decide to call them recipes? Because I think that's really cool.
Yeah, you know what? I can't take credit for that. That's just an industry lingo. That's really the way that most floral professionals refer to the mixes that they're meant to use, right? So when a florist is deciding which arrangements they're going to create for like an event or a wedding or a client call, they kind of create a list of all the flowers that they may want to put in that list. And next to that list, it's, how many of each of those flowers are going to go in the arrangement. And that just naturally became known as the recipe, because it really is just the ingredients. The list of flowers becomes the ingredients that go into the overall arrangement. And so I can't take credit for recipes. I love it. But that's definitely an industry terminology.
Now, you mentioned earlier when, like, some of the farmers, when they had to, like, there were bigger box brands that were like, what's the word I'm looking for? That were like strict guidelines of who they would work with and who they wouldn't work with. Have you ever run across like a company saying, "Oh, we're not going to work with you," or someone saying, "We can't work with you because we work with this well-known name brand"?
Nope, not yet. No, it has not happened. I've heard other people talk about those things happening to them, but it has not happened. It has not happened to us. And I think probably because we're really intentional about not positioning ourselves as a competitor to flowers. To florists. Right. Like, we have a database on our website, Black Florist, and we always will say, while we think DIY flower arranging is the best thing, there are times when it's not appropriate. There are times when the occasion or the situation calls for a professional to come in and design your flowers. Right. That could be for a funeral. It could be, for someone who's, convalescing. Like, there's so many things and times when you actually need a florist to design your flowers. Then, so we have that database. We say, for those times when you need them, here's our database of Black florists all across the country that you can call and utilize their services, whenever it's needed. And so for that, I think that's probably why we've been kind of safe from that, is because we're not really a competitor to them in that way. At least I don't consider us to be a competitor. And I don't think that they, I think initially some of them thought that, but now they I think we've been clear enough about, with our messaging and differentiating our offering, that we're in a great place.
Now, when you started this in 2020, when COVID hit, did you ever think it was going to get as big as it did, as quick as it did?
No. And it's so interesting how you say as big as it did, as quick as it did. It did start off very, very quickly. And even now, 3 years later, I feel like, because I have so much of a vision of where this company is going to go, and a nagging sense of frustration that we're not further along. And so it's interesting because I just was talking to someone earlier this week. And they were asking, we were kind of talking about the company and some of the things that we've got going on. And they were like, how long have you, when did you start this company? Or no, I think they were telling me that they had started their company in August of 2020. And I said, oh, same as me. We're business birthday twins. And they were like, you've only had this company for 3 years? And I was like, yeah, it's been 3 years. And they're like, how have you done all of this in 3 years? Right now, I think it's perspective, right? My therapist says that too. Like, you have to give yourself a chance to celebrate the wins along the way, because for me, it seems like we're not nearly far enough, but to other people on the outside, they look at it and feel like we have just shot out of a cannon and done so much so quickly. And so I guess I'm grateful for both, right? I'm grateful for the recognition and the acknowledgement, but I'm also grateful for really the humility, that I don't see it as, as it being as big as what other people do. I see where there are opportunities for improvement, opportunities to grow, opportunities to continue to move. And so I think it's a healthy mix. It's very much a healthy mix.
I love that, how you're in the moment, you're doing it, but you're also thinking about ways to grow, because I think that's a lot of people need to do life like that. You're in the
Yeah.
moment, but also think about what's ahead in the future, because a lot of people are so stuck on either the past or in the present, but they don't think about the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's life, right? The reality is, if you're not growing, you're dying. So you should always be thinking about, how can I stretch myself? How can I grow myself enough to where I no longer fit into this pot? I need to get moved to another place, right? Like, that's the pathway we should all be on. It's like, how can we really be the fullest version of ourselves that we could possibly be? Otherwise, what's the point? I feel like it would become so boring. I remember there was several years ago, it got in a period, this is before I started the company, where I was, still running my agency, and had gotten so busy that I'm an avid reader. I love to learn. I love information. I love, love, love to read. And I'd gotten so busy with work that it had been maybe a year or two that I hadn't read a book. And it truly impacted the way I felt. It impacted the way my mind analyzed information. It slowed me down. It very much slowed me down, because I was operating on the same amount of insight that I'd had since I read my last book, basically. And so it's important to always be thinking, absorbing new information, because it helps to expand your perspective. It helps to refine your insights. And in that's where the growth comes from. And because I have firsthand experience in really feeling the weight of what my life feels like when I'm not, exposing my mind to new information and new ideas, that I'm always, always, always thinking about. And it's not to say that I'm not appreciating and enjoying and being grateful for the moment that I'm in, but it's always yes and for me. It's always, yes, this is amazing, and I bet you we can also do this thing. And then, always thinking about, like, how do I continue to grow and, grow and grow? Otherwise, I'll get bored.
I love that. Now, you mentioned you have a vision for your company. Can you share a little bit about where you think you'll be, like, in maybe 5 years?
In 5 years. So one of the things that we're working on going into 2024 is finally building out our tech enablement. which is going to be an interactive content library of live and on-demand floral design tutorials. So I almost think like Peloton's membership app, but for fresh flower arranging. So within 5 years, if I'm only focusing on that element, I see us having a global offering with that SaaS product. I see it being subscription based. I see us, really being able to curate some really unique experiences in app around meditation, around music, really cool partnerships with, audio supported systems like Calm and Headspace, and music like Apple Music and Spotify, playlists to arrange to, sounds to arrange to, really helping people, building out floral healing curriculums, even thinking about, some forms of like a group therapy or group support systems within the flowers, using the flowers to kind of facilitate some of those. So I really strong major player in the health and wellness category, using our tech enabled platform to do it.
I love that. Our time is almost up. So before we get to where people can find out more about Postal Petals, is there one last thing that you want to share with people? One last little nugget.
Yeah, I guess the nugget is just, take time to center yourself and your self-care, right? One of the things that, with us, our platform is subscription based. Our offering is subscription based very intentionally, because whenever something is going wrong, the very first thing to go, if we need more time, the very first thing we cut is self-care. The very first thing we cut is a time to just sit and relax and be still. And part of the reason that we really were focusing on a subscription-based model is because, those flowers, if you don't tend to them right away when they arrive, they will die and you will have wasted your money. And so it's really almost forced self-care, right? Like you might be frustrated, like, oh, I don't have time for this, when it comes. But then once you open the box and start working, now all of a sudden you're in it. We've got you. And now you have no choice but just fully immerse yourself. And by the time you look up, you're enjoying the experience. You've given yourself the time you need to process the flowers and start to relax and decompress. And so the last thing I just want to say is, to whether it's our flowers or something else, we've all been through a lot in the last few years. If it's not our flowers, find something that to do to encourage self-care in your life, in your daily routine, that demands it, that requires it, much in the same way as perishable flowers demanded for our offering. Find something that does not allow time for negotiation when it comes to really requiring you to center your self-care and wellness. Because if there's nothing that the last 3.5 years has taught us, it's that our time is precious, it's not guaranteed, and that we should not go through life feeling the stress and anxiety of our day-to-day experiences without allowing ourselves the simple pleasure of just peace, of just, creatively expressing ourselves, of just not, free yourself from the obligation to intellectualize every moment of your existence.
Wow, that was a great nugget.
Thank you.
Now, where can people find out more about Postal Petals?
We are at Postal Petals everywhere digital. We're postalpetals.com. Online, we are at Postal Petals on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, Twitter. We are, I don't know when this will air, but we're, just getting into holiday season. We've got some really cool gifting solutions for the holiday, one of which that I'm really excited about is our prepaid gift subscriptions, right? And so it gives you an opportunity to gift self-care and wellness to someone else, gift someone else the opportunity to, for 3 months, have a box of flowers that arrive to their home, and they can, kind of get into the process of experiencing, what creative expression feels like when they're, working with flowers, and kind of let's get some people hooked on self-care. And so our prepaid subscriptions are one of our gift offerings for this holiday season that I'm most excited about. So visit us on postalpetals.com. Check out, we have a whole, kind of like a gift guide of different items that we have. And I'd be grateful for anyone's support.
Wow, I love that. And Talia, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing this company. Who knew out of COVID that something amazing would come out?
I know it's crazy, right? Like I just on my own, I'm like, how in the world did this happen? But sometimes things are just greater than you, bigger than yourself. So I'm very grateful, very, very grateful. And I
Yeah, and I can
appreciate you
tell.
having you. Oh, thank you.
And for
Thank
those
you
that
so
are
much.
listening, you need to go hop on YouTube and watch it because her smile is just so bright and she's grinning from ear to ear. She's been smiling this whole interview because you could just tell the love that she has for her
Uh,
company and for the flowers.
Yeah, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. These flowers are just a joy. And I'm really grateful too, because, a lot of times I'll hear people say that they made what they love their business and the thing they love became a burden. And fortunately for me, that has not happened. And I think part of me always looking ahead is me just getting excited about how else I can share this, kind of beautiful expression of love and self-care. So that's the smile. That's what you're seeing behind the smile.
I love that. So I will put in the show notes, guys, everywhere where you can find postal petals. And thank you so much, Talia, for coming on and for chatting about us and for spending part of your day with us.
Absolutely, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. Take good care and happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you too. And we'll see you guys on the next chat from the Block Cabin. Be blessed and keep chatting. Bye.